this video, I'm going to be teaching you how to go step by step through the application for a limited liability company in Sweden. Yeah, thank you so much for those who left a comment asking for this kind of video. Now, to get us started, I'm going to share my screen, Verksamt.se. So if you go to your pages there, you have logged in at this point with mobile bank ID. And if you want to find the link for this website, please head towards the description box below. I've linked it there. And if you come all the way here, you see I have a draft that I've not submitted yet. You can go and check out our business, our explanation of how to set up a freelance business here as a sole trader, self-employed. And I called it Jane Doe's Graphic Design Solutions draft, not submitted, yes. But if you want to check out how to start your own freelance business, please check that video. I just uploaded it too. You have some information here about how to register your businesses. So what you want to do, especially for an aktiebolag, a limited liability company, is register a company or association. So we will go over here. What do you want to register? They will ask you. By the way, I'm using the Google Chrome, Google Translate Chrome extension to translate the forms. So if you translate this back to Swedish, you'll see the differences. This one here is the sole tradership or the sole proprietorship, being self-employed as a freelancer. Aktiebolag is the limited liability company. And Bolagsverket, they want me to go and register and sign in through there. Bolagsverket, by the way, this is the business's database or directory or something like this. So I have to select a company form. And you have some information here about what you need to know about registering this limited liability company in Sweden. You should know it costs from 1,900 SEK to register a limited company and 250 SEK to register a beneficial owner. Who's the beneficial owner? Typically tends to be the CEO or the chairman of the board if you have several partners coming in with you. And this essentially means that whenever anything needs to be signed where there's some implied business liability issue or liability clause, then you need to sign for the company. So if you're the CEO, in my case I am, and I'm the beneficial owner as well of the business, then I'm the one undersigning most of the documents. Even if my head of partnerships is the one who set them up, I need to be the one that ultimately, since I own the business officially, I'm the one registering my signature directly. What you actually need to register your new limited liability company. We talked about this in the last video. Please check it out here. You typically need at least 25,000 SEK in starting capital. And this is going to be in a special account with the bank. So if you haven't gotten your bank account, go and do that right now. So let's accept and continue to just begin this. So let's start with contact details. Please put in your own private address. It doesn't matter if it's your private address, like you can do it, register it anyway, as long as you get the mail. So you need to get the mail from the tax agency once you're registering your business. Still works. Okay. Contact details in the matter. Yes. So fill in the contact details of the person you want us at the Swedish company's registration office to contact if we have questions about this matter. I'm Jane Doe and my email is janedoe at steelworks.se. Okay, next. And then I have name suggestions. And again, with picking a name, make sure, one, it's self-explanatory and relates to the name that you want to give to your business. And two, that it's easy to pronounce, easy to write down, spell out, and think. If people go on Google, they go on Google search, you can do this yourself. And they type Steelworks, what's gonna come up? Am I gonna have a lot of competitors with that name? Then maybe that's not the best idea. Maybe you should have done this beforehand. All right. But let's say that they type that Steelworks Sweden and not a lot of different competitors come up, then maybe that's a good name. Maybe you can check some domain names to see is Steelworks already taken. And then the domain name, as well as your business name, as well as your company name, they should all be the same because it helps. Again, brand uniformity. Check domain. Let's see if someone already stole it. Oh, someone already has stole it. Uh-oh. So maybe Steelworks is not the best idea, but let's just run with this for now because that was my example. So let's just call it Steelworks, Still, AB. That's going to be my wonderful name. And add more name suggestions. So AB means aktiebolag. Then you put your business description here, obviously. So this is, again, needs to be in Swedish because otherwise they will reject your application based off of that. They will have to call you and have all this back and forth. It's happened to me. Please don't do that. Once you're done with the description, then you continue. You can always put your company name in a foreign language. So this would also protect the trademark elsewhere. So let's say if you have an export company or you're working with partners in Japan and you want to make sure no one else will take your name in Japan, then you write your name in Japanese and you can trademark that. But bear in mind, this will come at an extra cost to do so. Special company name, this is if for some reason you want to have like an additional company name, let's say a branch within the wider company, then you would add here. But again, it comes with an extra cost, so maybe that's not worthwhile. So here, this is where you describe people in the company. So the number of board members, these are people that tend to be your partners or advisors and that will be part of your limited liability company's board. And the minimum is always one person. So you, for example, registering. So let's say you have five or four other business partners besides yourself, right? Obviously, that adds up to 5. Then you need to add all of these people here with their own social security number. So you have to add the person here. So here I would have to put, like, again, my person number and everything like that. So I'm going to do that right now with my own, but you have to do it with your own and with your partner. So you have to ask your partners, what's your business number, what's your personal number, and then you have to add it here. So here you see, you have to declare what that person's role is. Make it also clear from the start, like what's the expectation for each person involved in the company and in the startup. So in my case, for example, when I registered for my companies, I was a bit of everything. So I was a founder, yes. I was also a board member because that meant I'm going to be involved in making decisions for the company with shares, with my own share percentage. I was the chairman of the board. I was the one, like delegating and making sure the meetings were coordinated and make sure that the business partners were informed about things. So that's what the chairman of the board does. And I also became the CEO of my own companies. So once you've registered yourself, and if there's more partners, then you add another person here and you go through the same process of putting their personal number. If not, you continue. But you need to make sure that the number of people you're registering here is the same, because otherwise you're going to get an error here, is the same as what you said above. Again, so in this column here, it has to be the same. So the minimum number is 1 person. So if you're only putting 1 person, that's the only thing you need to submit. If you need to put minimum 2, then you need to submit at least 2 people. It's important to mention that if you happen to have only fewer than 3 board members, so including yourself, you always need a deputy. That's like a rule. We always need, whenever making board decisions, we need someone to break a tie. And this involves, for example, if your company has fewer than 3 members, you need a deputy member, because every time if 1 person is missing, there's 2, and if the 2 conflict on what they want to do, so 1 person is saying yes, go, and the other person is saying no, then we need a tiebreaker, and that's why we need a 3rd person. So if this 3rd person gets sick, then we need a deputy board member. We need someone to come for the meeting just to replace them, to be the tiebreaker if there's a tie. So I have 1, then I add person, and so you add their person, you add their information here. Again, this is important, so you do that. For deputy, say. So based on who gets to sign for the company and again, become the beneficial owner and all these other things, the signature rights, you need to decide based on the elected board. So in this case, I put 1 deputy and myself just for the example. All right, so you decide which one you want to pick. And then here, select the company signature, only the board and the deputy were separate, other signatures. So only the board would be just the 1 person that maybe I added to the board in this case, which was me. So maybe I'm going to just put only the board. Then you click next, then you have the shares and capitals. So let's say here that you have a minimum share. So you're putting in the minimum 25,000 SEK. So let's say at some point you're going to have investors, you're going to want to increase the share capital. Yeah, sure, you can do that. And that will mean that maybe you want to add some more extra money here. The higher the share capital means that maybe at most 4 times larger than the lowest share capital. So in this case, if you want to put the highest, it's going to be 25,000 times 4. So that's going to be 100,000. And then we have the minimum number of shares. So this is how you split that amount. So let's say if you have 25,000 SEK that's being invested by equally, like through, I don't know, however many 5 partners you have, then maybe you want to change the number of shares. Like, what does that equate to? You divide that number to know how much each share is worth. In this case, the ratio is, if I say that the minimum number of shares is 500 times 4, that then you get to 2,000. So that's pretty much the same ratio as the 4 multiplication here. So if you have any questions, specific questions about this, I always recommend you try to make it as simple as possible and just call Skatteverket or Verksamt in this case. Like, they have a call number somewhere down here. Contact us, because they will be able to explain this in more detail than I can. I'm not a tax advisor. I am not someone who can answer questions about how many shares you can put. This is just sample examples, okay, people? So I'm just some person on the internet. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. I'm just showing you how to do it yourself. So here, share capital, number of shares, fine. Share capital, this is what we have put, same thing. And then all they do is divide the share capital by the number of shares that you want to start with, and that gives you a 50 SEK pricing of your share. That's how much it costs to buy a share in your business. So whenever people want to buy into your business, then they would have to pay 50 crowns at least per share. If I'm the only shareholder, then I have to take all of these shares under my stake. So what does this mean? When I'm filling out this information, I have to put here 500 shares, because that's the thing that I'm saying. That is the minimum. Only founders can own and subscribe for shares. If you have other business partners, maybe you're splitting equally, maybe some people are pitching in more than others, then you're going to have to share differently. You're going to have to distribute the shares. And then date when the company was established. This can be symbolic. This can be today. But established means founded. When did you meet with your fellow partners, or when did you come up with the idea? That's the date you're going to put. Again, as with the freelancer account, here you have an auditor or an accountant, like someone who would officially check your books. Usually you can choose not to have an auditor, someone checking your accounts, or like an official person, like licensed person, within the first 2 financial years. And I definitely recommend this to kind of avoid those extra costs, unless you really want to be like super on top of your books from the start, and you want to, you should do that already anyway, but on your own, rather than delegate it to someone who's going to charge a hefty fee for that. Like, just keep in mind the costs of these things. So for now, I'm going to say the company must not have an auditor, at least not for the first 2 financial years. Seat name and fiscal year. So this is where you're going to officially register, which municipality you're going to officially register your business in. I'm going to pick Stockholm municipality. That's currently where I reside. And why does this matter? It matters because, let's say if you're in a random municipality somewhere else in Sweden, that is a tiny little town, they might have specific funding for you as a small business in that tiny little town. That might be a possibility for you depending on where you're living in Sweden. Here you can pick how you're going to contact the board members. So like business partners or anybody else that you register as a board member when it's time for a general meeting. General meetings is usually when you make decisions about, dividends payout and, decisions about the business, things to close down, people to be replaced, all these things. So usually I just say email. Traditionally, a lot of business meetings would have to be in person, but now that's not the case. So let's say that, yes, I do want to hold official board meetings digitally. And I'm just going to put that here. And then financial year. So this is when you decide, I want to have my fiscal year. This is the year that you're liable for tax, to start and end with a calendar year, for example. And that you can just pick the first option, January 1st, 31st of December. You go here, Nesta, perfect. And then for this one here, typically, this is if you want to add specific clauses to the Articles of Association. Let's say, typically the majority rule is if 51% of the shares owned by the shareholder, like the shareholders that have 51% majority, if they decide something needs to go through, something goes through. But let's say you want to change that. Let's say you want to make it 75%, the majority vote. Then you put these provisions here in these special clauses. So this is something that you decide with the other board members. But right now, I'm not going to put any. All right, so then you get to the notification of beneficial owner. And again, usually this is the person who's going to have to do a lot of the signing and the mobile bank ID logging in and things like this. So yes, the company has one or more. And usually you can add here what the beneficial owner is. Yeah, so if I go there, I can, again, register everything that has to do with this person. In this case, just to save time, I'm going to say no, the company has no real principal and no real beneficial owner. And this typically means that you have to go through the board. Everyone has to sign in the board. And then you have your compilation of information, all the information we filled out, and just make sure that everything is correct. If you would like to, you can always download all of this information you just plugged in to be shared with your partners, your potential deputy board members. So you can download all of that information in Swedish. As I mentioned in my previous video, you should have already had contact and set up a bank account to deposit your 25,000 SEK in, to make sure that they open up a temporary bank account for you to show, once you have their contact info, the person's contact info on the bank, for them to confirm, yes, indeed, they have the starting capital that they need to register their limited liability company. So that's the email address you put in here. It's the bank person's email address that they give you after they set up the whole account and put the money in there. You click send email to the bank, and then the bank has to say, yes, indeed, I can confirm they got the 25,000 or however much starting capital you're going with. And then they send that information back to Verksamt and Bolagsverket. And then you can actually finalize this whole process. Until then, you can't. So you then send the email, you sign, pay, and submit. And what do you pay? 1,900 SEK. That's the fee for this whole application. And you submit that, and then that's when they start processing. And how do you know how long it's going to take for them to process your case? That depends here on these numbers. So right now, the last time it was updated, July 8th, register a new limited liability company. The response time is usually within 7 working days, so about a week. That's how long it takes. After they get the okay from the bank, which also takes like 3 to 4 days for them to reply. So I hope this has been useful. I appreciate you guys had written those comments asking me to make more of this kind of material. And please drop down in the comments below if you would like to see any other type of videos that relate to business and starting a business in Sweden, being a woman leading a business in Sweden, being an entrepreneur in general in Sweden, in Stockholm. How do you find your people? Like, I can give you so much insight. I just don't know exactly what you're looking for. So if you can write down some comments, I would appreciate some leads. Thank you so much, guys. I will see you on the next one then.